bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And this half hour being brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory. Great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. They go over every vehicle on the lot. Terrific service department. Quick lane inspections, routine, difficult, all at Sunbury Motors. 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Now joining us is NBC Sports' Todd Blackledge. He'll be calling the Oregon-Penn State game on Big Ten Saturday night at 7:30 on NBC and Peacock. Todd, welcome. Great to have you back.
How you doing, Steve? Good to be back.
Good. Well, I have to start with Illinois, Indiana, because I thought just sitting there, it was going to be a really close game, go to the fourth quarter, the whole thing. And then we saw that. You witnessed it in person. What did you see?
Yeah, well, I think, I was very surprised, as most everybody was. It started out like it was going to be what we thought, kind of a rock fight. Both defenses got an early stand, and then there was the block punt that Indiana had, which was, a big break for them. And then, shortly after that, it just became an avalanche. And I just think at the line of scrimmage, Indiana was just far superior. Defensively, they just overwhelmed the offensive line of Illinois, which I think that was as big of a surprise as any. This was an offensive line that returned all 5 starters, and they just couldn't do anything. They could not protect Luke Altmaier at all. And then offensively, Indiana was, they were super efficient. I mean, Fernando Mendoza looked great. Their running game looked good. They just were faster and more physical and more relentless the entire night after that, first 3-4 minutes of the ball game.
Yeah, amazing. I one more about that, and it's about Fernando Mendoza. He was at Cal. He transfers in. He knows Indiana likes to develop players.
Yeah.
What did you see in him as a fellow quarterback that impressed you as to how he handled himself out there?
Well, I think, watching him on film the 3 games prior to that, too, I mean, he got better and more comfortable and more relaxed each week, and you could say, well, they weren't playing anybody. The competition was inferior, and that's true, but he looked more, the game before against Indiana State, he was 19 of 20, almost perfect. And then in the game against Illinois, I mean, he just was razor sharp. I mean, you could tell he was confident, he was comfortable, he was seeing things. They ran the RPO game almost to perfection, and that was just him seeing it and making the decision to throw or making the decision to run, and very accurate where he was going with the football. And then, the ball was coming out so quickly that Illinois couldn't even create any pressure at all on the quarterback. So it was he was in full command and full control, and if he continues to play like that, Indiana is going to be a tough out, because I think overall he's more talented arm-wise, and even if he decides to run, he's more talented than Curtis Rourke was last year, who had a great season in his 1 year running the show at Indiana.
All right, so now let's get to Penn State, Oregon. Dante Moore, when he was at UCLA, he was just a kid at the time, really struggled with turnovers. Goes to Oregon. Gabriel had already transferred in. He sits a year and now has gone out and has played the first 4 games this year. When you watch him, Todd, what is impressing you about how he's handling himself out there?
Yeah, I think he looks excellent right now. I went out and saw them scrimmage in August, and my biggest takeaway watching him in that setting, obviously before the season, was just how accurate he was throwing the ball. He can make all the throws. just he was he throws a very catchable pass, a very soft-looking catchable pass, and so I was very impressed with just what he looked like in that setting, and then just watching him on film, and I'm in the middle of watching him on film right now. I just think he's playing at a very high level. He's very confident. He's very poised. He shows a lot of composure. Even though he hasn't started and played a whole lot of games, he looks way different right now as the Oregon quarterback than he did at any time as a UCLA quarterback. So I think just, sitting behind Dylan was really helpful for him last year. A couple years under his belt, under the coaching of Will Stein, who I think is excellent as their offensive coordinator. And, he is really playing at a high level. And so I think he will come into, the environment he's going to step into on Saturday night. It'll be unlike anything he's probably seen, but he should be a very confident young guy coming into that game.
Then on the other side, Drew Aller will make his 33rd career start. When you look at him on the video, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think that Drew is obviously, he's still, he's an enormously talented guy. He has a big arm. He can make all the throws. He's athletic enough to make some plays and extend some plays. Just from a numbers standpoint, I don't think he's been as efficient as I think he would like to be through the first three games. He's still taking care of the ball. He's not throwing it to the wrong team. But, from a completion percentage standpoint, just their overall efficiency in the red zone of scoring touchdowns, their overall efficiency on third down is not right, where they want to be right now or where they're going to need to be, in a game like this on Saturday night. But they've had the bye week now, and I'm anxious to watch him play because I think for Drew, he has made great strides and developed from each year that he's been the starter. And the next step in his development is quite clearly, okay, now it's time to play your best in the biggest ball games. That's the one thing that he hasn't done so far, and he'll have that challenge ahead of him on Saturday night, and he can take a big step forward in that, in this his third year as a starting quarterback at Penn State.
Absolutely. With Jim Knowles there, Penn State, as you know, has really been heavy man coverage team over the years. Jim will mix it up a little bit because I'm sure it gives them more answers when they get into a game where man coverage isn't quite working. When you look at Penn State, does it seem like they're grasping their concepts on defense, and how important were the first three games for Jim to see that?
Yeah, I think that they are, and make no mistake, his system in what's fully in is complex, and I've seen him, and covered him when he was at Oklahoma State and obviously at Ohio State, and really it's something that year two they're a little bit better looking than year one. Year three is kind of when they really fully hit their stride. Well, Penn State doesn't have that luxury right now. I mean, they want to make a run at a championship in year one. And I think, having said that, what they look like on film is they do look like they are on the same page, that they're in the right spots. And I think it will just get better and better the more they play. So I think these three games that they played were very important for him to kind of see where they're at and to know how much more they can kind of do. You mentioned, getting away from just playing man and some of the zone stuff that he likes to do also involves pressures, and pressures coming from different spots and playing zone behind it. So I would expect we'll see, maybe more of their package in this game than what Penn State fans saw in the first three games.
Oregon's interesting on defense. Veterans up front, especially in the front six, front seven, but they have got a couple redshirt freshmen and a true freshman in the secondary. When you've watched them play, how cohesive have they been defensively?
Well, I think they've been pretty good so far. I think when you look at their numbers, they're doing a good job in their pass defense. They're really good on third down. They've been pretty good getting after the quarterback, getting tackles for loss, those kind of things. But the challenge, and the team they're playing coming up is much different, much better than what they faced, the offenses that they faced so far. Now, I do think, I really liked Dylan Thieneman when he was playing at Purdue.
Yeah.
I thought he was an outstanding young safety. It's a different looking scheme. When he was at Purdue, a lot of times he was 20, 25 yards off the ball. Now he's a lot closer to the line of scrimmage, but I think he has been an excellent addition to their defense. And so the corners are young, but they're kind of long and they're rangy, and kind of what you're looking for in that kind of their kind of a scheme. So I think they played very well, but I think this will be their biggest challenge by far coming up on Saturday night.
And Todd, the biggest change that Penn State made on offense will be the guys that will be going against that secondary, the 3 transfer receivers. When you've looked at that on video, what have you thought?
Yeah, I think they're all kind of, look like they're developing, look like they're getting, Drew is developing chemistry with all of them. I don't know that one of them has particularly stood out among the others. I just think they kind of all are contributing in a positive way. I also think that about, Luke Reynolds. I think he's become a very reliable target for Drew as well. And I've told people this, I think that, the more these guys play together, the better it's going to be for Drew and for the entire offense. Last year, Tyler was such a matchup problem for defenses, and he was such a reliable target. And I think Drew got so comfortable knowing he could go to him when they needed a play, and in significant moments. And I think without him now, the fact that they could become more diverse with where they go with the football and who they find matchups for, I think in the long run it'll make Drew better. And I think in the long run it'll make Penn State more difficult to defend. So plus, I think Singleton and Catron are both really good as receivers coming out of the backfield as well. So I think they got a lot of ways to hurt you throwing the football, and it's up to Andy to kind of, pull the right numbers and make the right moves to get the best matchups they can.
Conversely, you mentioned Catron and Singleton. The running game has been split up among many players to this point at Oregon. Part of it's been injuries. But they've split it up a lot. Where do they fit in the pass game, in your opinion, with Dante Moore quarterback?
Well, I haven't seen a whole lot of them throwing to the backs, quite honestly. I mean, most of their work has been to the outside. They've got a couple young receivers. The DeCorian Moore, the freshman out of Duncanville, Texas, looks to be really legit and is off to a great start. The transfer from Florida State, Malik Benson, also a guy who is a good-looking player, and then Kenyon Sadiq, who obviously Penn State saw in the Big Ten championship game. He continues to be, I think, a really matchup problem, dangerous guy in the Oregon pass game. So I think the running backs not doing a lot catching the ball so far. Now, if Noah Whittington is supposedly going to be back, and he was kind of the lead guy in that group, when the season started. They all look good running the football, but they have not been utilized so much in the pass game to this point.
Okay, you've been in big-time atmospheres as a broadcaster. You were big-time atmospheres as a player. What does that do communication-wise on a field? Because Penn State's defense has to communicate too. But what does it do to an offense attempting to communicate in an atmosphere like this?
Well, it's way worse for an opposing offense than it would be for a defense, just because you have to somehow get the ball snapped, and the defense can react to the ball being snapped. So, that's one of the things I'm going to pay a lot of attention to. Is just what's their operation going to be like? Will they use silent counts? Do they think a clap can work? I mean, how are they going to try to be effective at the line of scrimmage? How does the offensive lineman get ready to get into their pass sets? Are they looking at the ball? Are they going to hold hands? Are they going to tap each other? There's a lot of different ways that you can approach it. And so to me, that's one of the things I'm going to pay attention to early. And it can't be the same. And you have to be able to mix up how you're going to get the ball snapped so that you can't allow the defense to kind of tee off on the same rhythm. So certainly that'll be one of the biggest challenges for Dante Moore and for the Oregon offense. And we'll find out very early on, in their first couple possessions, how they plan to deal with it.
Finally, Todd, on this one, Oregon has scored 187 points on opening drives since 2022. They're 3 of 4 scoring touchdowns on opening drives this season. I know you have to play the whole night. I got it. Every play is big because play 5, play 58, play 102 could all be big. But how important is the start in this game?
Well, I think if you're Oregon, and that's kind of been your MO, if you get off to that kind of a start in this game, in this environment against this defense, I mean, that's going to build some serious confidence. Plus, there's no way to take a crowd out of the game or maybe quiet them a little bit more so than coming out early and having an impressive, efficient drive offensively, to start the game. So I think from a confidence standpoint, from a way of neutralizing the crowd early on, it could be huge. And vice versa, if Penn State comes out and gets a big-time 3-and-out defensively early on, I think that is huge and will keep the crowd, kind of at a frenzied pace. So, and then as far as Penn State's offense is concerned, I think for them to come out and look efficient and look sharp early in the ball game, I think will be very important for them confidence-wise. The game's not going to be won in the first quarter.
That's right.
But you can really set the tone and set the tempo for how you're going to play the rest of the night in the way you come out and start the ball game.
Todd, always a pleasure. Looking forward to seeing you and the gang this weekend. It should be a terrific game. Thanks a lot for your time, as always. It was also great to see you down in Pittsburgh as well.
Absolutely, Steve. Look forward to seeing you, man.
Thanks. The outstanding and one of the absolute best in the business, Todd Blackledge. He will be on the call with Noah Eagle and Catherine Tappan, calling the Penn State-Oregon game on Big Ten Saturday night, this Saturday at 7:30 on NBC and Peacock. Come back, wrap it up in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.
September means the return of football, everything pumpkin spice, and the September Serrano sale at Sunbury Motors Kia.
Wanna see ya in a Kia. Sunbury Motors Kia.
That's right, the September Serrano sale is on, and SMC has 10 2025 Kia Serrano turbo models with $1,000 in Kia Finance bonus cash and as low as 0% APR financing for 48 months. The 2025 Kia Serrano hybrids have as low as 0.9% APR for 48 months with an additional $500 in Kia Finance bonus cash. And Sunbury Motors Kia has 2025 Kia Serrano S all-wheel drive models starting at just over $35,000. Remember, every new Kia comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited powertrain warranty. It's a September to remember. The September Serrano sale at Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip in Hummel's Wharf and at sunburymotors.kia.com.
The first generation of American infrastructure was based on hard work, ingenuity, and solid steel, much of it created right here. The second generation, it's built on technology, and Penn Teledata is leading the way with nearly 10,000 miles of fiber optic cabling connecting families, hospitals, banks, and businesses, providing valuable jobs throughout hundreds of our communities. We're the next generation, delivering advanced technology to your home and business every day. Penn Teledata.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.